Well, I see a few familiar names and faces and some new ones. So thank you all for being here today on Ash Wednesday to learn a little bit about our Faith and Racial Healing program. My name is Leela Oakley, and I'm on the team here at Just Faith Ministries, and I'm joined today by Reverend Kristen Dollar, my colleague and our program director here at Just Faith. And we are going to take some time to share with you about this program and give you some insights into the program content, how these programs might work in your community for a small group, and then give you a very small sample of one of the sessions. So before we jump into the content kind of about who we are and what this program is, I'd love to know who's on the call. So if you're in a place where you can get down to the chat, I invite you to head on down to the chat. Put in your name and where you're calling in from. So if you're able to head on to the chat and let's see who might be on the call with us today. As I said, my name's Leela Oakley. I'm on the team here at Just Faith Ministries, and I am in Richmond, Virginia. So joining you from Virginia today. And we have Kristen, like I mentioned, my colleague in Louisville. Okay, we got Ohio, Tennessee, another Ohio, Washington, D.C. Hey, Margaret from just south of you. Illinois, welcome. Andrew from Chicagoland, welcome, Andrew. We have Dr. Lewis Brogdon, our new executive director here at Just Faith Ministries, joined us today. So welcome, Lewis. He's also calling in from Louisville, Kentucky. All right. Well, I think we got a pretty good smattering of folks joined us today. Thank you again for being here. And we'll go ahead and hop into it. I'm going to hand it over to Kristen to share a little bit about who we are as an organization, and then we'll dive into the specific program material.
Great. Well, I would also be curious to know how many of you all here today are brand new to Just Faith Ministries. I'm seeing some old friends, but I'd be curious to know who is brand new to us. If you've never taken a program before, it'd be great if you could type the word new into the chat box, NEW. Uh, and for those of you who are new to us, here's a little bit about what we do. For over 25 years, we at Just Faith have been creating small group programs that ordinary folks can facilitate in their communities, either their in-person communities or virtual communities as well. Our programs guide groups in creating brave spaces of community and trust where folks can dig deeper into their faith and ask challenging and important questions about some of the biggest social issues of our time. And participants exit our program really prepared and inspired to address root causes of injustice, both in their local communities and beyond that as well. We offer programs on a wide variety of topics, including immigration, creation care, civil dialogue, indigenous justice, gun violence, poverty. We also have a Spanish English bilingual program, and we have seasonal offerings for Advent and Lent. It's not too late to sign up for our Lenten program. So just a note about that. But today we'll be spending our time discussing one of the programs in our racial justice series, which is Faith and Racial Healing, Embracing Truth, Justice, and Restoration. And so if you are new to us, you might be wondering, there's a million bazillion ways that you could fill a church calendar. There are so many things that you could offer your church or congregation, from book studies and Bible studies to service opportunities in the communities to retreats. Of all of the ways that you can fill your time, your church calendar, why choose Just Faith? Well, some reasons are here, you can see on the screen. One is to provide a deep spiritual experience leading to more committed members with faith alive in the gospel. Secondly, our programs can help you to build a community-wide vision and a shared vocabulary to address some of the most difficult social issues of our world that really weigh on our hearts. And so many of us are just aching to talk about in our communities, especially the people that we're often closest to, our church families. And in so doing, our programs can help you to, rather than divide in these divisive times, our programs can really help you to enrich the relationships among your community by working together for causes and projects that you care about in your community and beyond. They can inspire new and expanded ministries to make your church a more effective tool of God's healing and God's transformative presence in our world. And they can also renew your church with fresh direction and energy while holding fast to the proclamation of God's reign of love and justice in our world. In a time when so many of us are seeing empty pews on Sunday mornings, our programs can really be a great way to spark some new life and energy. So, all that said, if you're looking to accomplish any of these goals for your church, our programs and our staff are here to help you. So, do not hesitate to reach out.
Thanks, Kristen. I want to just share a couple ways that folks are kind of engaging deeper in the issues of surrounding racial injustice and racial justice in our country after doing our programs. And these are just a few things that we've seen small groups, church communities, and individuals doing a post-program participation. A lot of folks report back in their post-program surveys that they're getting involved in existing advocacy and nonprofit organizations who are doing work around these issues. Specifically, we've had folks who have gotten involved with the organization Dismantling the Doctrine of Discovery that works on Indigenous justice issues in our country. We've had people involved in different organizations like the one listed here around mass incarceration and reforming our criminal justice system. Folks involved in broader organizations like Bread for the World who also address racial injustice in our country. We've had some groups and individuals start new organizations, whether they're educational, education-based and kind of informing their communities around different issues, or advocacy groups in and of themselves. An example of that is a group that started in the Hampton Roads area of Virginia, just a little east of me, and they're called the Virginia Catholics Against Racism, and they're working on organizing in the Catholic Diocese of Virginia. We've also had people just deepen their involvement in their church community to educate, to raise awareness, and to mobilize their congregations for action, initiating racial justice teams or increasing efforts of work already being done there. And then people committing to and building relationship across lines of difference, including racial difference. So these are just a few things that we've seen folks get involved with. And wanted to mention them, especially those of you who are new to us who think, what is this program and what might it do for my community? Here are just a few ways people have taken the program and then found themselves in meaningful and deeper action. I'd like for us to just take a moment before entering into this prayer from Dr. Martin Luther King to pause and maybe take a deep breath. I know if you're like me, your day is full and you're probably moving from meeting to meeting or event from event. And I invite you to just take a breath and maybe think for a moment about what brought you here today. What's weighing on your heart that might have led you to sign up for today's information meeting? Consider what you are hungry for personally. What dreams do you have for your church or community that have prompted you to be here? Let's take a moment to consider those questions. Dearest Jesus, come and sit with us today. Show us the lies that are still embedded in the soul of America's consciousness. Unmask the untruths we have made our best friends, for they seek our destruction, and we are being destroyed, Lord. Reveal the ways the lies have distorted and destroyed our relationships. They break your shalom daily. Jesus, give us the courage to embrace the truth about ourselves and you and our world. Truth. We are all made in your image. Truth. You are God. We are not. You are God. Money is not. You are God. Jails, bombs, and bullets are not. And Jesus, give us faith to believe redemption of people, relationships, communities, and whole nations is possible. Give us faith enough to renounce the lies, tear down the walls that separate us with our hands, with our feet, and with our votes. Amen.
Amen. Well, thank you again to everyone who took the time out of this their busy day to be here with us. Now we'll dive straight into the program that we are all here to learn about today, Faith and Racial Healing. Really, in summary, the overall theme of this program, the overall purpose of this program is to guide groups in telling the truth about the history of racism in the United States so that we can work toward true reconciliation with God and restoration with one another. And so you might be asking, with all of the pressing racial justice concerns, pressing and urgent racial justice concerns that are happening right now, when civil rights legislation is being disassembled, when people are being arrested in mass because of the color of their skin, given all the pressing concerns that are happening right now, why would you want to learn about the history of racial injustice when we have so much going on right outside of our doors? Well, the answer is because we so often try to skip to the easy part, reconciliation, without first doing the hard work of truth telling. And that's really what this program is about. We believe that by learning about a history that so many of us did not learn about in our high school history classes, we can better understand the racist systems and structures that are still in place today in order to understand how to dismantle those systems that oppress us and our neighbors. We first have to understand how those systems were built. And then secondly, some of these systems have become so normal to us, so embedded in our daily lives, so part and parcel interwoven in our institutions and our laws and policies and these day-to-day decisions, that they're so normal to us that it's hard for us to even see them. So it takes looking back to really have a clear vision of what we're facing today. And so we think that this program, this opportunity to look back at about how our country was formed, about the how our racial about how structures of racial injustice were built, is an important opportunity and a starting point for conversation about how we can engage in racial justice work in our local communities and beyond. An important note before I dive into some of the details, in this program, we chose to focus specifically on African enslaved people and their descendants. And we did this for a number of reasons. One is that because we think that this is a unique history that is foundational to our entire understanding of the invention of race. And it's also important to understanding the different manifestations of racism in all of its form. We also feel that it's important to do one thing well rather than too many things poorly, and that if we pay special attention to this topic, we can help to open participants' eyes to patterns of injustice that affect other communities of color as well. I'll also mention or just even reiterate before we dive in, that this can feel like a daunting topic to many of us, but we have developed our programs in conversation with people who are experts in their field. So you do not need to be an expert in racial injustice and facilitating groups in order to facilitate this program. You do not need to be clergy. You do not need to have extensive experience on facilitating groups. We have designed our programs to be able for you to be able to pick up and to bring into your communities. And now I will dive into some of the program goals because I feel that they can really help you to understand what this program is all about. So here are some of the objectives, some of the things that you can expect to walk away with after you finish the program. So the first goal is obviously to learn about the history of racial injustice in the United States. And we're doing that in order to understand and more effectively eradicate modern day racial injustice. The second thing that you can expect to do in this program is you can learn how faith communities have responded to racial injustice in the past in order to both avoid their mistakes and to learn from their successes as well. Thirdly, I think particularly important to tap into the faith and the spiritual wisdom that those who endured injustice and stood for freedom in the past have to offer us today, especially during these trying times, to lean into their wisdom. And then another goal is to develop practical tools for seeking racial justice in our local communities and in our nation. We expect our program participants to leave the program to exit session 8 better prepared and ready to get to work and to take action. And last, even and maybe even perhaps most importantly, a core goal for this program is to transform a collection of individuals into a real community of love and support. The members of this community will continue to encourage one another as you seek spiritual transformation together and take action for justice long after this program is finished. We have found that in all of our programs, participants who go through a program together tend to remain together as a community, supporting for one another for years and even decades after their program experience is complete. So that was a little bit about the broad overview of the program and the goals of what you can expect to accomplish. Now I'll kind of get into the nitty-gritty, into some of the details, and walk you session by session of what you can expect in this program. So I'll start with the opening retreat. Especially with a program like Racial Justice, we have found that it can be really helpful to spend some time getting to know one another and building trust before the program begins. This is also an important time to be grounded spiritually and theologically before entering into some challenging conversations. And so we provide you with an opening retreat. There's two options for this. There's one that is 3 hours and there's another that's 6 hours. If you're meeting in person, we encourage in-person communities to try to go for that 6 hour version because that can be really fruitful. But we also provide a 3 hour version that is in the virtual manual. That's for virtual groups, but that in-person communities can also adapt as well as needed. So that's a little bit about the retreat that will hopefully help you to build some trust before and a strong foundation before you begin. Then you'll dive into session 1, which is really an opportunity to kind of step back and to see the big picture of racial injustice. In this session, participants will put together a timeline of racial injustice that spans the course of American history through 1990 in order to really start to identify some of those big picture patterns that repeat themselves over and over again that we're seeing, especially today. And then through the remainder of the series, will primarily focus on the experience of enslaved Africans and their descendants, but this exercise will help participants to really see a broader perspective before they zoom in. Session 2 is you will view a film together and have a discussion about the horrors of the Middle Passage. And you won't just leave it there at that dialogue. You'll have an opportunity to really process the heavy conversation through a spiritual practice of lament and remembrance, which are core pieces of our Christian tradition that we think come particularly in handy here as we engage in this difficult topic. Session 3 is called Recovering the Voices of the Enslaved, and you'll work in small groups to read and discuss the narratives of those who were enslaved, learning from their wisdom, hearing their actual words from their voices, and gleaning the wisdom that they have to offer us today. Session 4 is about convict leasing and mass incarceration. Over recent years, people have become more and more aware of mass incarceration, but a lot of us don't know that the key elements of this problem actually date back to the convict leasing system that was invented during Reconstruction. And so this session traces the history of mass incarceration and really helps participants to understand the origins of the problem so that they can better advocate for a justice system that is truly just. Then in session 5 is maybe one of the most difficult sessions in the program. This session educates participants about the lynchings and terrorism that have been inflicted on Black communities and how these events continue to affect communities even today. The past is not merely the past, but lives on in our present. And so at the end of this session, you'll have an opportunity to creatively connect this learning to the practice of confession. During session 6, you will discuss how white resistance during school integration affected and continues to affect the education of our nation's children. I also think you'll find this session extremely relevant to what we're seeing right now. Between 6 and 7 is an immersion experience in the local community. And really, this is an opportunity to visit with an organization or group that is already working for racial injustice. This can be one of the highlights of the program, and it can be really inspiring and motivating for participants as they're beginning to discern how they can take what they learn and plug in that knowledge and get plugged into their communities. And so, for example, this could look like attending a community organizing event together or attending a church service of a congregation that's actively involved in dismantling racism and meeting with the church leadership afterwards. Oftentimes, this looks like getting together, or the way that we have it designed is that you will meet together as a group to engage in prayer and reflection before you go out into the community. You'll have your community experience together, and then you'll come back to your location, your meeting location, to process that experience. And there's also virtual adaptations as well if you plan on doing this over Zoom. So then after the immersion experience, that you will have an opportunity to learn about the true theology of Dr. King, or at least a little glimpse of it. The civil rights movement really arose out of the prophetic tradition found in scripture. And so during this session, you will explore the radical and challenging theology of Dr. King. We so often just read the little clips and quotes on social media around MLK Day, but this is an opportunity to really dive into that rich theology that is so relevant to us even now, and especially now. Session 8 is a call to action. It's called Seeking Restoration, and this session will guide your group in discerning how they feel called to respond to current day racial justice issues that you are seeing in your community. And during the session, your group will also invite a guest speaker, and this experience will help your group to brainstorm ideas for taking action. And so if you have taken a Just Faith program before, you'll note that in this program, the guest speaker comes at the end rather than in session 5, because again, this is a great opportunity to talk with someone about the most effective ways to take action. And then throughout the program, there are a variety of books and resources. And so you will encounter podcasts and articles and things like that. But the core elements are the weekly assignments that you'll engage with throughout the week are the books. The first book is The Color of Compromise by Jemar Tisby, and it narrates the history of Christianity's complicity in racism. It's so well done, and it's a really accessible read. And so that's the first book. The second book is Post-Traumatic Slave Syndrome, which explores the effects of generational trauma. And the third book is called 40 Days of Prayer, which will guide you in a weekly spiritual practice. I'll also mention that we have an entirely different version of this program that's as what we call the broadly spiritual version of the program that looks very much the same as the program that I just described. The session topics are the same. But this version of the program is for folks who do not identify as Christian, or people who consider themselves spiritual but not religious. It could also work for an interfaith audience. Or it can also be a great fit for people who just prefer a different approach. And really the only difference is that this version of the program is based in meditation and mindfulness rather than the teachings from Christian scripture. There are also different books. So you'll see that post-traumatic slave syndrome is the same in both the version based in the Christian tradition and this broadly spiritual version. But 400 Souls and the Inner Work of Racial Justice are included in this version. 400 Souls describes the 400-year journey of African Americans from 1619 till the present, or at least when this is written. I want to say it was maybe around 2020, 2021. And then the Inner Work of Racial Justice introduces mindfulness practices to help to prepare us for the spiritually challenging work of seeking racial justice. So just letting you know about both of those options. And I also want to give a huge shout out and thanks to our consultants and partners. We could not have done this program without them. Their wisdom is interwoven throughout this entire program. And really all of the wisdom here is not ours at Just Faith Ministries, but it's the wisdom of our partners and consultants. So one, Dr. Lewis Brogdon is now our executive director, but was formerly our consultant. And that's actually how we met him, is through working with him on this program. So we're so grateful for him and for that relationship. Also, Dr. Vicki Verdon Lott, who ended up serving on our board, and has decades of experience in leading conversations around racial justice. And so her wisdom is incorporated throughout. And also thanks to our partners at Simmons College of Kentucky and Bread for the World.
Thanks, Kristen, for that overview. We want to pause for a moment and see if there's any questions that might have come up for you all. We'll have more time at the end for Q&A, but want to take maybe a halftime break for questions. So if anyone has program content questions for Kristen, we'd be happy to discuss them now. You can head down to that chat and add them in there. And we'll just pause here for a moment to see what might come up. If you are on this call and you're someone who does not like to use the chat, and you like to be able to talk out loud, no worries. In a moment, we will have at the end of the conversation today, we'll allow it where you all can unmute and can share your questions or comments aloud. Okay, I see a few questions that have come in. Someone says, why does the timeline only go until 1990? It actually goes to, I think you might be referencing the 400 Souls, and it goes to 2019.
Oh, actually, Leela, I think Laura might be referencing possibly that one does go up until the book does go up until the time that was written, but the timeline at the very beginning in session one, the very beginning of the program, does go up to 1990. And the reason is because this program is really about the history of racial injustice. And then in the other two programs, we talk more about the present day reality. So this is Faith and Racial Healing is part of a 3-part series. Faith and Racial Equity is the first program, and then the last program is Faith and Racial Justice. So this one really looks at the history, and then the other two will tackle the present day issues.
Great. Thank you, Kristen. Sorry. Laura was quick to think I knew what you were talking about. I should have reserved that for the expert here. Sylvester's asked, are these sessions held weekly or monthly? And really, that's up to you. I will say most commonly groups meet either weekly or bi-weekly, meaning every other week, in order to maintain kind of a closeness to the material and to the relationships. But you can find the cadence that works best for your community. So if that is monthly, that's great. We want our programs to be impactful, and we do think that having meetings closer together can help with that, creating a sense of connection and impact. But ultimately, you've got to find a way to use our programs in your community that makes sense for your community. So that can be flexible. Karen here has asked, so this is one of three programs you offer on racial justice. Yes, that's correct, Karen. And I'll put a link here in the chat in a moment where you can explore a little bit more about faith and racial equity or faith and racial justice. And then in my follow-up email to you all, I'll send a recording to a previous information meeting we held on all three programs. Today, we really wanted to have time to dive in deep to this program, but I'll include that recording. So if any of you want to check out those other two, um, programs in the series. You can learn a little bit more there and then follow up with me with any questions. All right, so Laura here has asked, are the sessions expected to be an hour, 2 hours? Kristen, do you want to talk about the session length? I know I'm going to get into that a little bit more about that in a moment, but do you want to give people a general overview of that?
Yes, the sessions are designed to last 2 hours. That said, there's plenty to talk about. So if you would like to extend them to 2.5 or even 3 hours, however long you want, there will be plenty to discuss. So yes, 2 hours.
Yeah, I know there was a young adult group in LA that used these programs. Actually, one of our colleagues, Heidi Villaluz, facilitated that small group. And she said that they would often stay on for an hour longer just because folks wanted to process and connect. But obviously, that's dependent on, everyone's availability and other demands. Um, no worries if you have to leave early. I see someone's said they've got to leave a little early. That's just fine. We'll send the recording so you can catch up with us later. Okay, Kristen, I'm not seeing any more questions right now. So let me move us into this next section. And then if you do have a question, feel free to keep adding them there in the chat. So a little bit more about what to expect with this program and really any of our programs at Just Faith Ministries. They are designed to be used by a small group. So we recommend between 7 or 8 to 14 participants journey together throughout the program. So a small group so you can build real relationships where you can connect, know one another, and have time to really process, share, and listen to one another. This program has 10 sessions. So if you recall, it has that opening retreat, the 8 kind of regular sessions, as well as the immersion experience. So that's 10 total gatherings. Like I said a moment ago, you can meet weekly, bi-weekly, if you need to, even monthly, in order to accommodate the needs of your small group. Each time you gather, you'll be gathering for 2 hours. And it can be in person or virtually. So you can do this program on Zoom, you can do it in person in the same room with one another, or even hybrid in the sense that you could gather virtually for most of your meetings and then choose to be in person, for example, for the retreat or for the immersion experience. Between those weekly or biweekly or monthly meetings, you're going to engage with some weekly assignments. And as Kristen referenced, those are going to be podcasts, articles, spiritual practices, readings from the books that are associated with the program. So you'll have some time to kind of dig into some content and then bring your insights, your thoughts, your questions, your lived experience to the conversation that you're going to have with your small group. Every session will look a little bit different, but you can kind of expect this general outline. You'll begin and end in either prayer or meditation, depending on the version of program that you register for. And then you'll have a ton of time for dialogue. Really, the materials we provide a lot of prompts for conversation. And so you'll watch a video or engage in an activity, and then you'll have time to process using the questions provided and have good dialogue. And then you'll always have time to reflect on those weekly assignments to, again, to share the kind of wisdom, insights, questions that came up for you and process those with your small group. In each session, you will find that there's a time before the closing prayer for some discernment. So, as Kristen referenced in session 8, you will really be discerning as a group the individual and kind of collective actions you want to take now that you're coming to the close of the program. But you're going to be asking yourself and collectively asking the group those questions each week where you say, now what? Now that I've learned this, now that I have a deeper understanding, now that I've shared these things with my group, what do I do now? Where is God calling me into deeper engagement in the world? And so you'll get to share those new insights, those considerings throughout the entire program, and then have a larger conversation in that final session. So what's next? The first step is really deciding, is this program a good fit for your community? Or maybe there's another program in the series that feels like a better starting place, or even another one of our offerings. So the first step is really discernment, and I'm always available to chat if you want to talk further. I know Kristen is, and we're really here to help you decide if our programs are a good fit for your community and how best to implement them. You can then register for the program by starting a small group on our website. You'll go to our website, click Start a Small Group, and fill out that form. And you can register your group. You then get to decide who's facilitating. So we like to call the leaders of our small groups facilitators because you are facilitating the conversations. You are not the teacher. You are not the expert. As Kristen said, you are just there to follow the materials provided and create a space for the conversations to happen. And so um, you'll want to identify who's going to help lead the small groups, be those facilitators, decide if you're meeting virtually or in person, set that start date, and begin spreading the word using our marketing materials provided. So that's kind of the process of taking it from this moment to implementing the small group in your community. This can be done in a church, it can be done with a nonprofit, or it can just be done out of your house with your friends. So I invite you to kind of consider who you might want to be a part of this journey with you. And you can think as big as you want, given the gift of virtual groups as well. While I referenced the facilitators a moment ago and said that you don't need to be experts, I just want to reiterate that we do our best at Just Faith Ministries to support people who step into this role. So we provide training, both recorded and live trainings. We provide one-on-one support and customer service. The materials themselves are fully scripted, so you're never having to come up with content on your own. But you have access to the fully scripted material as soon as you register. And then we have a newsletter where we send out tips each month if you want to subscribe to that. But I know that was a lot of information. I will pause here and see if anyone has any questions about getting started, kind of any of those nuts and bolts details, any questions or comments before we move into a prayer or meditation and video from the program itself. Um, Okay, we've got a good recommendation for a movie that we might consider using in a future update to the program. Thank you for sharing that. I know Kristen will mark that down and add it to a list of resources to consider for future updates. Thank you.
Thank you.
Kristen, I'm not seeing any questions come in just yet, so why don't we go ahead and move into this next portion and then we'll circle back to any questions that might come in.
Okay, perfect. So the spirituals were songs of lament, of profound hope, and songs of resistance that were sung by enslaved people. They're rich with theological meaning and history, and we really wanted to incorporate them throughout the program. And so they are the anchors for the opening and closing meditations throughout the program. And so, as our closing prayer for our time together today, we will engage in the opening meditation from session 3, which introduces us to the spiritual called Follow the Drinking Gourd. And it also invites us to hear a gospel text a little bit differently. And we'll read that gospel text here in a minute. And yeah, so I invite you to just take a deep breath and to recenter yourself into this space. Maybe relax your shoulders a little bit, and let's remember that we are in the presence of God. A reading from Matthew 2. When they had gone, an angel of the Lord appeared to Joseph in a dream. "Get up," he said. "Take the child and his mother and escape to Egypt. Stay there until I tell you, for Herod is going to search for the child and to kill him." So he got up, he took the child and his mother during the night and left for Egypt, where he stayed until the death of Herod. And so was fulfilled what the Lord had said through the prophet, "Out of Egypt I called my son." When Herod realized that he had been outwitted by the Magi, he was furious, and he gave orders to kill all the boys in Bethlehem and its vicinity who were 2 years and under, in accordance with the time he had learned from the Magi. Then what was said through the prophet Jeremiah was fulfilled. "A voice is heard in Ramah, the weeping and great mourning, Rachel weeping for her children and refusing to be comforted because they are no more." After Herod died, an angel of the Lord appeared in a dream to Joseph in Egypt and said, "Get up, take the child and his mother, and go to the land of Israel, for those who were trying to take the child's life are dead." So he got up, he took the child and his mother, and went to the land of Israel. But when he heard that Archelaus was reigning in Judea in place of his father Herod, he was afraid to go there. Having been warned in a dream, he withdrew to the district of Galilee, and he went and lived in a town called Nazareth. So was fulfilled what was said through the prophets, that he would be called a Nazarene. This is the word of God. Thanks be to God. And so in Matthew's gospel, the Magi's starlit journey allowed the Holy Family to escape government sponsored oppression. Similarly, enslaved people followed the star to escape the government sponsored oppression of their own day. They sang the spiritual Follow the Drinking Gourd to covertly communicate instructions for escape. Literally speaking, a drinking gourd was a hollowed out gourd used as a water dipper. But in this song, the drinking gourd refers to the Big Dipper and the North Star, which enslaved people followed to freedom.
When the sun comes back, when the first quail calls, follow the drinking gourd. For the old man is waiting for, carry you to freedom. Follow the drinking gourd. Well, a riverbank is a mighty good road. Dead trees show you the way. Left foot, peg foot, traveling on. Follow the drinking gourd. Follow the drinking gourd. Follow the drinking gourd. For the old man is waiting for to carry you to freedom. Follow the drinking gourd. Well, the river ends between two hills. Follow the drinking gourd. There's another river on the other side. Follow the drinking gourd. Follow the drinking gourd. Follow the drinking gourd. For the old man is waiting for to carry you to freedom. Follow the drinking gourd. Where the little river meets the great big one. Follow the drinking gourd. For the old man is waiting for to carry you to freedom. Follow the drinking gourd. Follow the drinking gourd. Follow the drinking gourd. For the old man is waiting for to carry you to freedom. Follow the drinking gourd.
Our closing prayer is for those of us who are looking around at the state of our world and feeling overwhelmed by the journey that's ahead. It's called For Those Who Have Far to Travel, and it was written by Reverend Jan Richardson. Let us pray. And there ahead of them went the star that they had seen in its rising, Matthew 2:9. If you could see the journey whole, you might never undertake it, might never dare the first step that propels you from the place you have known toward the place you know not. Call it one of the mercies of the road that we see it only by stages as it opens before us, as it comes into our keeping step by single step. There is nothing for it but to go, and by our going, to take the vows the pilgrim takes, to be faithful to the next step, to rely on more than just the map, to heed the signposts of intuition and dream, to follow the star that only you will recognize, to keep an eye open for the wonders that attend the path, to press on beyond distractions, beyond fatigue, beyond what would tempt you from the way. There were our vows that only you will know, the secret promises for your particular path, and the new ones you will need to make when the road is revealed by turns you could not have foreseen. Keep them, break them, make them again. Each promise becomes part of the path. Each choice creates the road that will take you to the place where at last you will kneel to offer the gift most needed, the gift that only you can give before turning to go home by another way. Amen.
Amen. Thanks, Kristen. All right. Well, we want to see if anyone else has any other comments, questions, things you'd like to share. I'm going to make it where folks can unmute, but also ask that if you have a question or comment, if you ask it and then let other folks on the call ask away, just to ensure everyone gets a chance to be heard. And then we can circle back to you if you have a couple questions. So if you'd like, you can stick with the chat. If you'd like to unmute, you now have the power. So you can do as you please and ask away.
I have a question.
Yeah,
So my name is Sylvester Williams. Um, love the presentation and content I saw. Um, so you guys did a great job. I guess get my appetite, get me interested. I just don't. I'm not quite sure. I was clear on the format. Is it that we are expected to take the material and go form small groups on our own, or out of this group, will there be a small group? I guess I'm trying to understand the interaction here between what you guys are providing and what's our responsibility if we want to participate.
great question. So the materials are crafted so that you can take them, register, and bring them back to your community, Sylvester. So you would go to, let's say, I'm just going to say your church, but whatever community you're interested in engaging these conversations with, take the material, recruit 8 to 12 folks to come along with you and to do the program yourselves. Now, there
So,
are a few exceptions. When people create small groups, they are able to choose whether they're public or private groups and then post them on our site. So if someone wants to have a public group, and it's in person, they get to list those details. And then if you happen to be in the same community and you want to join, you can. And then there's sometimes people will post a public virtual group. So anyone who's able to join virtually can join in as a participant. So there are options to connect as an individual, but um, the uh, the way our programs are really designed is for you to take them, use the materials, and take them back to your community, and either facilitate it yourself or find someone who might be willing to facilitate it for the group.
yeah.
Yeah, thanks for asking. I see there a couple folks might have been wondering about that, so I appreciate the prompt. Anyone else? Any other
I have a
questions,
question.
comments, insights you'd like to share with the group?
I have a question. So you mentioned that there are three different programs in this series, and then there's other kind of immigration related programs, some from Indigenous justice. And I'm thinking, especially if they're kind of around the same format, that kind of being able to engage small groups in our communities and kind of the variety of those programs might be difficult. Is there any way to kind of see like the like materials across the different programs in order to help communities like pick which ones might be best aligned
Hmm.
with their interests or what they're able to commit to, um or is there kind of any flexibility for doing like more combined programs that can kind of touch us across those different topics, or um what does that look like?
Great questions. Um, a couple responses, and then Kristen, feel free to chime in if I'm overlooking anything. Um, the for each program we have a program overview that gives you kind of a big picture, the goals, the session topics, and I think those overviews can be a great resource to look at to see, okay, here are maybe 5 different programs we're kind of interested in. Let's learn a little bit more to see which one we might want to actually use as a small group. Um, if you want more detail than that, I can also grant people access to the full program material. So Jessica, if you were like, okay, we're interested, but we really want to see it before you register, I just do that individually with folks. I'm always happy to do that as well. But I find if you're choosing between multiple programs, that's almost like too much information for a lot of people. So those overviews can be helpful. You can download those on our website, but I also can email them to you. So I'm going to email you all tomorrow. If you want to respond back and say, I looked on your website and these 5 topics are interesting, I could just attach them back to you as documents for you to review. Um, and then your question about could you combine programs? You know, People typically don't do that, but I will say I appreciate you asking that, and I'd be interested to know y'all's input. That is something we've considered creating in the future, is maybe like kind of a program that in each session, maybe you touch on a different justice issue to give people, obviously by no means a comprehensive look at an issue, but kind of a quick glance at like what's going on in this space in our country or in our world. So that is something we've considered and wondered if people would be interested in that. So I appreciate your question because that kind of affirms maybe that would be something you'd be interested in. So not to read too much between the lines there. So always happy for input. If you see something that's not in our current program offerings like that, we're always open to input and, planning ahead for what programs we might create in the future.
Thank you. That sounds great. And I definitely would be very interested in something like that.
Okay, cool. All right, I'll put a vote in the camp of people who say they're interested in that. Thanks. Anybody else?
Well, since there's a lull here, um, um, I've been a priest in St. Louis for 59 years and spent most of my time in the inner city. And so over the last several years, I've given Black History bus tours of St. Louis. So I did 20 of those for 400 people. And then, and then some people who've helped me with the tour also recognized that I was 85 years old. And they said, "You're really good and you're really old. And when you die, who knows all this? You ought to make a movie." So, anyway, we made a movie that's won awards in, in, in Indianapolis and in St. Louis and in Venice, Italy, and in Melbourne, Australia, called The Black History Tour of St. Louis. And since we've started showing the movie around, it's been seen by about 2,000 people, mostly in colleges and universities. But anyway, it's available, and if people want to use it, we would be flattered to have people. I mean, it looks at aspects of Black history in St. Louis include an obvious thing like the Dred Scott decision. Dred Scott's great granddaughter's in the movie, and she tells the story about it really well. And but other Supreme Court decisions and about healthcare and education and redlining. Redlining was invented in St. Louis. I'm not proud to tell you that, but it was by a city planner. And it could
Mhm.
could opened some eyes in various ways and is readily available.
Gerald, what's the best way? I know you put the name in the chat. What's the best way for people to find it? Just to Google it? Is it on YouTube or is it publicly
Well,
available?
it's on Vimeo.
Okay. So probably if we just
And
search
so
that title,
if you
then
just if you um the link would be www period Black History Tour.
okay. Cool. I'll see if I can pull that up real quick and then pop it in the chat, or if someone else already has, feel free to add it there. Thank you for sharing that and for sharing the wisdom and insights you have with folks that it can live on. I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Anyone else got a comment, question, anything you'd want to share?
I want to ask one more question if nobody has one. I don't want to steal all the time.
I don't see anyone unmuting, so I'd say go for it.
Okay, so I'm just curious. I mean, it's the first time I've heard of this. Can you share? Shucks, my computer's going. I gotta plug it in. Like just some success models that's work. You know, what have people done in the past? What you're offering and how have they made it work? And I got to step away for a minute because I got to get my phone. My phone's going. My video's going to go. My computer's going to go.
Okay,
Battery's
yeah, go
down.
get
So
your charger.
okay,
We'll
I'll be
maybe wait
listening.
to
Go ahead.
answer.
Go ahead. Oh, okay, just wait. Okay, give me a
But
minute.
yeah, we'll wait. If anyone else has a question, so we actually get to answer it when he can hear it. No pressure. We'll just hang out. We'll see how far away his charger was from his computer.
Coming.
There we go. Well, we were all holding our breath. Welcome back.
Yeah, I'm sorry about that.
Oh no, no worries. Hey, it happens to me almost daily, so I'm right there with you. Yeah, so let me ask you a clarifying question, and then I'll also let Kristen speak some because I've just been
Uh,
blabbing my mouth. Um, when you say success, you mean like people success in using the programs in their community, or how people have kind of maybe engaged on the issues after the program, or a little bit of both?
um, maybe a little bit of both. How about that?
Yeah, a little bit of both. So I'll
Mhm.
kind of chime in, and then Kristen, please add in here. Um, so I feel like there's a couple things for how our programs are used in communities to that have been helpful. One is our programs can provide an avenue for people to have really hard conversations that they just don't otherwise have. It's so easy to kind of engage with it, in the church context or beyond, engage with the people you typically engage with in your regular way and not dive deeper into important issues, or kind of even if you talk about social issues that you just kind of maybe you're just talking about your frustrations with our current reality, but you're not diving deeper into solutions and how you can really partner together in your community to create change. So it creates this sort of weeks long space where you're being pushed by the program and by one another to dig deeper in yourself and your mind and your heart into your community, to really look around, and then you're being asked the question over and over again, which is, what are you going to do about it individually and collectively? So not just like okay, great, now we know this, let's go on with our lives, but now we know this, so what? So I think we just don't have a ton of those environments in our life, or at least I know a lot of people who report back say like this was a gift to me and a challenge to me to have this kind of space carved out in my weekly rhythm to learn, to grow, and to change. Um, and then and even across, and I will say even across different. So, we have a lot of groups where I'll talk to facilitators and they're kind of like, yeah, we're all sort of one mind here. We're being challenged, but we all kind of agree. We're coming from a general same maybe position or perspective, but we are still learning and growing. But then I also have folks who report, having small groups with people who really disagree on different issues. I feel like a common one is with our faith and immigration justice program right now, that people are just coming into the conversation with very different opinions, um, and so it can also create an environment where people who disagree can share about that and learn and grow from one another in a space that sort of requires and asks certain behavior of you. So those are some sort of, I think, gifts and benefits for in the small group in the church community. And then how it changes people, it really is kind of on all different levels. We have individuals who report back and say, this changes the way that I spend my money every month, the kind of businesses I shop at, who I vote for, the way I volunteer and spend my time. We see folks getting involved with like existing national level organizations, whether that's showing up for racial justice, which is not exclusively, predominantly for white folks who are getting involved in racial justice work, or starting their own nonprofits if they're in a community that really lacks a collective group that's taking action on issues. So we do see people also not just having those individual level transformations, but looking out and looking to join kind of existing movements and starting their own movements where it makes sense too. So I'll pause for a moment. Kristen, anything you'd want to add in? And then I see Veronica's hands raised, and I'm wondering if Veronica's done some of her programs, wondering if she might have something to add from her own experience. But Kristen, anything you want to add first?
I think you described that really well, Leela. I'll just say kind of see three main ways that people offer the program to benefit their communities. One is in a church or like an organizational setting to really get the conversation going and to maybe even change some of the culture around how we talk about hard issues or how we talk about race. And then secondly, I've seen people use the program across communities. So there might be two churches who come together to offer the program, or a people who offer the program for the wider community. So there's people, around in the community engaging in this topic together, and they can come together to create change in their local community. And then thirdly, we sometimes have virtual groups across even the nation. So people from different areas of the country come together to have dialogue around this topic. So I just also wanted to name those three ways if you're kind of thinking about how you might bring this to the community and engage them.
Bájalo un poquito.
Great, thanks. Veronica, anything you'd want to add? Or maybe you were wanting to ask your own question, but anything you'd want to add to that?
Yeah, just my personal experience. I've been involved in one way or another since 2014. That's 12 years, and it ebbs and flows, and with COVID and everything in between. When I first started, it was all in person, so it was a little more difficult to be involved. But since COVID, since about 2020, everything being virtual would have been more involved and more engaged across cross-culturally, cross-nation. I don't know, it's been through several programs, even with the bilingual program that we've been trying to get off the ground. I'm in the Northeast, and we're trying to get the bilingual program just off the ground, and the immigration and racial, and just I don't know. People change, people get involved, people get transformed. I mean, you can say 8-10 weeks is not long enough to change anybody, but it's intense. And I believe that the group is so intense that it does change people at a very deep level. So that's what I've experienced.
Thank you, Veronica, for sharing with us. We appreciate that. I see Andrew's unmuted, and Andrew might have his own story to tell. So, Andrew, if you want to jump in.
Sure, thank you. I belong to a parish. It's in the south suburbs of the Chicago area. That our history is that we've had, issues of white flight and so forth. We're having a hard time living together, so to speak. And so the issue of anti-racism and programs and whatnot is not new in this area. But I'm running into two different sentiments, different groups. One by white people who I just see it as white fragility. They just tired of, white people getting beat up on, and there's just a I don't know, a deadening attitude that I experience with them. And the truth is, those aren't the target group, but they're there and they have influence. Then there is a much broader African American sentiment that we're tired of trying to fix white folks. And this is white people's problem. Y'all fix yourselves. That's and so I'm figuring, well, we'll do something. I'm going to bring this to our parish, and if we get 3 or 4 people, we'll work with that. you know. But I'm just curious if there are any insights of how to get beyond those, and particularly the response I've given to my fellow African Americans is that burden is somewhat our prophetic role in this, and that's why it's important that we're part of that. But that just isn't compelling. That's not a compelling argument. Nobody wants to be a prophet. We know what happens to prophets. And so I'm just curious if there are any insights on how we can break through these attitudes that are long-standing. It's been decades of dealing with this in this area.
Hmm. Hmm. I appreciate that question. Kristen, anything you'd want to add, or I could jump in?
Yeah, I had two thoughts that was, yeah, helpful, Andrew. Two thoughts that kind of came to mind was I would really hope that this could be a program that the Black folks in your community who are feeling, rightfully exhausted of trying to fix white folks, I would hope this could maybe be a resource that they could say, hey, here is a tool that you can use and it is ready for you. Do it, and give them a little push, and then let them run with it. But if there are folks who want to be involved, Black and white, people of color, we all have really missed out on this key piece of information in our school systems. And so we've noticed that, no matter who goes through our programs, people are generally surprised by the content that they're learning. And this might not be true for folks who have been in this fight for decades. That might not be true for them, but for folks like maybe even like younger folks or folks who are not don't know their history quite as well, this might be new information for them, actually.
Yeah.
The historical piece, I would say. Leela, what are your thoughts?
This is being recorded, so I hate to say this, because obviously I want to see Just Faith Ministries programs used, but I think you also have to be honest about what one program can and can't do. One program is not changing, our programs are not changing the world necessarily. I think that they do change people, and those people have the capacity then to go out and make change. And that's why we still exist 25 years later. Otherwise, we wouldn't exist as an organization. But I think if you, Andrew, are looking at people who are skeptical for whatever reason, all the reasons you just said, whether they're white, Black, a person of color in your community, if you're looking at them and saying, this is going to be the answer for our community, then I think you're setting yourself up for failure, and you also are going to breed more skepticism in them. So I think what I would do, what I have done in my community is I say this is a tool and an opportunity, and I extend the invitation and say I am going to invest. I am going to take my time. I'm going to be open to the way God might be calling me to change, to grow, to listen to the Spirit moving in my heart. Do you want to try it with me? Now, some people are going to say no, whether they're tired, whether they're resistant to growing or changing, and that's okay. But, I just want to add that in there to say it's okay if people aren't in a place where they want to use one of our programs, and it's also okay to kind of set realistic expectations, and then to encourage people to participate by your own commitment and investment, and see where it goes.
And the resources that are available now that Just Faith uses, and other anti-racism efforts use is much different than it was 20 years ago. I mean, it's more. You know, the analysis has grown, and we know more. And so that's what I'm hoping some of this new information or newer information would not make it, oh, here we go again, the same old, you know. Uh,
Mhm.
I think one of the obstacles we face also is pastoral, um, I don't want to call it cowardice. I'd like to soften that a bit, but it's pretty much that. They just not into making waves, you know. Um, so wish me well.
Yeah.
We will hold you in your community in prayer, Andrew. And, as much as we can, we're here to support you. So, yeah, thank you. Great. Sylvester's asked, after 10 weeks, what are the objectives or accomplishments that have been reached? Kristen, do you want to speak a little bit to that?
Sure. Well, I think people can expect to
Mhm.
emerge from this program knowing the broad overview of our U.S. history of racial injustice, which is core to taking action in a way that's effective. I also think that this is an opportunity to learn how to engage in dialogue with through deep listening and respect for one another, which seems small, but I really feel that if we don't, this is really our only hope for moving forward, I feel generally as a society. I would also say, um, but I would hope that this program would inspire and motivate folks to engage in action in some way in their community. A lot of times people look around and they know that they want to be doing something and they don't know what to do. And so this program offers, number one, some context and information that they can use to be a launching pad to help them to discern how to more effectively engage in action. And then number two, it provides this community of support because the group can continue to support one another as they engage in action, both together as a group and as individuals. And so I would say those are some of the main things. And then I guess the last thing is just that, like, again, like the ongoing community of trust to be able to, you can accomplish a lot as one person, but to be able to work together as 8 to 12 people, that's, so much more that we can do to dismantle systems of racial injustice and to really have a voice in the decisions that affect our communities. So, Leela, do you have any thoughts about that?
I think that's well said. And I realize what time it is. I know we're coming up a little bit past our time, so I just want to honor the fact that if folks do need to leave, feel free, and we'll share this recording. I know I'm able to stay on for a little bit longer before my next meeting, so let's keep digging into some more questions. Cindy's asked, what's the cost of the program determined? Yeah, great question. So we want our programs to be accessible to communities, individuals, and small groups. So we really do have a pay what you can model where you can self-select per individual participant at a rate that makes sense for your financial situation. So either if you're a part of a church or an organization that has a budget, you can pay us from that budget, or each person who participates in the group can register and pay what they can to participate. We have kind of a set tier of $35, $55, or $75 people can self-select, and then a button where people can select if they would like a adjusted rate, and then they can share what portion they can cover. So whether that's $0, $5, $15, people can self-select at the tier that makes sense for them. No, additional reporting or anything required. So that is the way the pricing works. Now, as you notice, there are some books involved in this program. Everyone kind of handles books differently. You can order them through our organization when you register, and that supports us as a nonprofit, but it's not required. So we have some folks who use Audible versions, e-versions on their Kindle, and then we have some people who rent from a local library, buy from a local bookstore. So, or even share as a group. We've had groups where maybe 3 people will share a set of books and kind of rotate them around throughout the week. So that can be negotiated based on, your priorities and what makes sense for your situation. Okay, I'm not seeing any other questions. So let me say for the 100th time, I think I will email you tomorrow. So I'll be in your inbox. And if you have additional questions, if you want to continue this conversation, you can just reply back. Like Jessica and I were talking about, if you have other programs you want to see the overview for, just shoot me an email. I'll respond back to you and we can go from there. It's been good to share this time with you this afternoon. Thanks for coming to learn about us, about this program, how we might partner together to serve your community. So we appreciate you giving us a little bit of your time and look forward to being in touch as we move forward.